Welcome to the Interstate Mets Report with your hosts, Nelson and Chris.
What is up, all you lovely Mets fans? It's your boy CP here, and I am joined, per usual, with my co-host Nelson. It's another episode of the Interstate Mets Report. How are you doing, Nelson?
What up? We doing all right? Hanging in there. A lot of personal stuff going on over the last week or two, but we're keeping it going.
Sure, definitely. No, I 100% agree. It's been a hectic and busy time for everybody, and as is for the Mets, and that's why we're here. So before we get started, make sure you all are hitting that thumbs up, commenting all your thoughts and opinions per usual. You know when to tap in with us. You know that all your opinions regarding this team, surrounding this team, are welcome, and we will toss it up and have a discussion about it. And you know where to find us for all the latest updates on the stream on X at Interstate Mets. Tap in with us there. But we got a little bit of a variety of topics here for you all today to discuss surrounding this team. And first, obviously, we're going to get into the obvious in terms of, the recent hire to be the manager of this team moving forward. But we're going to take a deep dive into everything. Obviously, the hot stove season just started. We are, a couple days into it. There's a lot of news surrounding not only players that are currently on the Mets, aka Pete Alonso, but other players are going to be hitting the market like Yoshinobu Yamamoto. There's a slew of reports out there. If you have been following SNY and Andy Martino, then you got some reading to catch up onto. So, but let's get into it, man. Let's get into it, and let's talk about this Carlos Mendoza hire. And before we talk about the nitty-gritty details of this hire, we're going to be talking about his current his experience, right, in the league. So Carlos Mendoza, if you all don't know, we have his little resume here up on the screen for you all. He is a former minor league / independent ball player. He had a 13-year career before he started coaching within the Yankees organization. He started off in their Gulf Coast League as a manager. I forgot the specific team, but it was in Charleston. And that's where he started his coaching career. Shortly after, I think that was in about 2011, 2012, if I'm getting my timelines correct, but I could be off in that. He joined the actual Yankees team as an infield coach from 2017 to 2019. And then thereafter, as you all know, he served as the Yankees bench coach, the right-hand man to Aaron Boone there from 2019 to just recently when he got this promotion to become a manager, first-time manager of an MLB organization, crosstown New York Mets. So give me all of your latest, I guess, details or your thoughts and opinions on this hire. I know we went over this in our Monday show with Talking Mets with Rob. We do the Mets Roundtable podcast. If you haven't tuned in, both of those like podcast episodes are really great because you not only get to hear what me and Nelson have to say, because you all are always tapping in with us on Tuesdays and Fridays, just Fridays for now, but Tuesdays eventually. But you also get to hear a different outside perspective on that. So Nelson, tell me all of your ideas, philosophies, reactions to this Carlos Mendoza hire.
Yeah, man. Like I said on Monday, like obviously I've been looking into tons of different options for managers, even though people kept telling me I was wasting my time and Counsell was going to be the guy no matter what. So at least I was right in that it wasn't just Counsell like automatically like a lot of people assumed. But I can't lie and say that Carlos Mendoza was ever on my radar. He wasn't on my radar. He wasn't on any of those Vegas lists. He just kind of came out of nowhere. It was nice that we got a name. I kind of like that we got a name that we didn't know. Like sometimes you get the same guys and it's like, okay, are we really going to get anything different with this guy? I like that he's got experience in New York. From what I've read, apparently he's not afraid to like push back on the players, not afraid to push back on the analytics at times. Like, honestly, we're not going to know until he gets on the field with the team and they perform what this is all going to look like. So I say we got to give him a shot, man. Like, I love the fans that are just like, oh my goodness, here we go again. We're gonna suck, and this is Luis Rojas. You don't know that. Like every single manager has to get hired for the first time at some point. Some of them perform well from the beginning, some of them don't. It's a crapshoot, but you can't just say just because you hire a veteran like that's gonna work out. Like, and listen, even if Council would have been hired, we would have got a whole army of fans yelling and screaming because he never won anything in Milwaukee and all that. So you just gotta take it easy, calm down. We're good. We're all learning this guy together. We'll see how he manages a bullpen and manages the lineups. Obviously, that's a joint effort with the front office. But I honestly have no issues with it. I'm perfectly happy with the hire. I do find it interesting that it hasn't been made official yet. Like,
Yeah, I think this week, right? This
yeah,
coming week.
yeah. For some reason, we haven't done a press conference. They haven't even announced it like officially on the Mets um handles or whatever. It's only SNY that confirmed it. They haven't denied it either, but it is interesting just to point out. But I'm sure they're just working out whatever. Maybe he hasn't gotten to sign a contract yet or whatever. I don't know. But hopefully we get a press conference next week and we'll get going. It'll be interesting to hear what he has to say. I did go back. Like, I've found like some YouTube clips of him. Like he obviously had to manage a few times because Aaron Boone gets thrown out like every other game. So he has like done some post game interviews and stuff. So I did go back and listen to some of those, and he sounds like pretty intelligent and whatnot. So, and I like that he's bilingual. Like for me, that was big in hiring a guy that could communicate with these young Latino kids. Yeah, there's translators, but things always get lost in translations. And I love our translator, but even I've heard him. He screws up at times. He doesn't say things exactly like the player is saying it. So it's good to have just a guy that can directly communicate with the Latino players.
Sure. No, I agree with you 100%. I know that's what you said in terms of, I know Joe Espada was at the top of your list, and that was something that attracted Joe Espada for you in terms of filling that manager hole. Before I give my opinions on the Carlos Mendoza hire, I'm going to shout out the chat, everybody in the chat. Appreciate you all watching. Looks like we got a good amount of heads in here. So we got Yuki. What up, Yuki? Hey, Nelson and Chris, should the Mets save money for Alonso and Soto for 2025? We can get into some Soto talk because there is speculation around the league with new reports saying that the Padres are more likely than not going to be trading Juan Soto. Nothing's official. This is all speculatory, but we will touch on that at some point within the show. Tom's in the chat. What up, Tom? How are you doing? Stevie Mac, always up, always in the chat supporting. What up, Stevie? We got Matt here. Can't fault Council. He legit got everything he wanted with Chicago. Family money resets the market and moves into a bigger market. I completely agree. That's where I was going to head into my analysis.
I believe he's part of the till Mets do us part. I
Till
forget.
Mets do his part. Yeah. Shout out Matt. Yeah, I'm tuning with those guys too. So shout out them. Appreciate you supporting our stream as well. Great point here. I'll get into that a little bit as well. PB, I think it's Patty. I'm good with Council. Thumbs up. Shout out Patty joining the stream as well. We got some more comments. No one really knew who Mendoza was until he was linked with the job. Let's give him time and give him a chance before chasing him out of town with the pitchforks. Completely agree. Completely agree. I think Matt agrees as well. And we got a whole bunch of discussions here. Aaron's in the chat with us as well. Will this impact any free agents coming to Queens? I don't necessarily think so. Obviously, it's just us just giving our opinions and speculation, but I don't think this influences anything. If anything, you talk about guys on that side, not only Cashman, and Cashman's word is whatever Cashman's word is, however much you value that, but other guys like Harrison Bader came out and saying, obviously that the New York Mets got a great one with Carlos Mendoza. So there's guys around the league that are praising the Mets. So
Volpe
what
had
was
some
that?
Volpe had some really nice things to say about him.
Volpe too. Yeah, Volpe too. We got John in the chat as well. What up, John? How are you doing? Appreciate you. Stoney's in the chat. He says, hi, guys. What up, Stoney? Yep, Till Mets Do Us Part. Go check out Matt and Till Mets Do Us Part on YouTube as well. I know they run a great podcast that I'm always tuning in. So if you guys aren't tapped in with them, make sure you go ahead and tap in with them as well. And then we got Lindor Silver Slugger Award. Yeah, there we go. We got some good awards coming out. Good news. I know you're thrilled with that, Nelson. So am I. He definitely deserves it. So 100%. And do you see a reunion with Severino because he has ties to Mendoza? I hope not. I know you don't want to see that, Nelson, either.
Nah,
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
I'm good on that.
Um,
I mean, it could happen, I suppose, but I'd definitely
yeah.
rather not.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, the main point that I want to stress here is that Council pretty much seems like he indirectly baited the Mets, but I find it hard to believe with what Stern said and how he was portraying it. Like he wasn't surprised that Council did that. So he had his backup plan ready, locked, and loaded, and he made the decision, I think, before the council hiring got even announced. David Stearns knew who he wanted. So if you are one that didn't want David Stearns here, more power to you. You have every right to sort of go ahead and criticize this hiring. But if you wanted David Stearns here to not go ahead and trust him in terms of who he wanted at the helm moving forward, that's up to you. But I'm just going to sit here and tell you that I wanted David Stearns here 100%, and I know that he is fully confident by all the answers and all the actions that he's done in terms of recruiting and making Carlos Mendoza a priority. That is his guy. That is 100% his guy, and I'm going to trust in that action. Um, in terms of the lack of experience, I understand. Like this is the New York Mets we're talking about. There have been managers in the past, first-year managers in the past. You talk about Mickey Callaway, you talk about Luis Rojas that haven't panned out. I completely understand that, but let's not sit here and act like these reporters are not dramatizing this all. I mean, John Harper, I don't follow his work that closely, but I do follow the SNY page. And obviously, he put out something that said it feels like the Mets are already 0-1 after this Carlos Mendoza hiring before the season even starts. That's sort of journalism. Like, I'm not going to call out anybody's work, but that sort of journalism, just like, it doesn't make any sense to me, man. It doesn't make any sense to me. In my opinion, the Mets are on a fast track to not rebuild because it was never a rebuild, but they've been doing everything the correct way once the season had fallen apart. So, listen, Carlos Mendoza, I don't know much about him. I'm not going to say here like I've done a ton of research on him, but I trust where this organization is going. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, let me just on that Harper point. Mets fans have to realize, and I think it's hard sometimes because you want to react instantly. These reporters, these radio stations, WFAN, for example, they know what they're doing. Mets fans are allowed, they're vocal. There's a lot of us, and let's face it, we're kind of easily baited. So they know if they throw a negative little thing in an article or say something negative towards the Mets, it's gonna get views, it's gonna get clicks, it's gonna get interaction. It is what it is. They know what they're doing. So don't take everything that they have to say seriously because they're just trying to get their views up just like everybody else.
Yep, 100% agree. 100% agree there. So that's my take on the whole Carlos Mendoza thing. Like I said, I'm not going to bash this sort of move, even though I didn't know the guy. Like I'm not going to do that. And two, like the offseason is going to play out, and the way that I'm going to judge this offseason is not off of manager hiring. It's how we fill out the rest of this roster because this roster does have gaping holes in multiple positions and the rotation. So that's a lot more important to me. Before we move on to the next topic, make sure you're subscribing to both of our YouTube channels. Nelson is at Amish Country Mets Fan in the description down below. Make sure you all tapping in, subscribing to the channel. And if you're watching on Nelson's, go ahead and go over to mine at CPNY Sports. Obviously, we do this weekly, and we'll be continuing to do it weekly, if not twice weekly, to update you all, as well as the Roundtable podcast, as I mentioned before. So that's my whole kind of spiel on the Carlos Mendoza hire. I don't really have much else here. He's going to be introduced this week. He's going to give his press conference this week. I'm highly curious to see what he's going to say. I don't really enjoy press conferences because I don't take too much stock into them. Like even David Stearns' press conference, obviously outside of the whole Alonso name drop about not trading him, like these guys are saying exactly what they're supposed to say. We're not going to know anything about their true colors or philosophy until we get into the season. So all of this is just hearsay and speculation. But it is good to get him in the Mets uniform, obviously introduced alongside Steve Cohen. We'll see if Steve Cohen actually does his hair this time because his hair is looking a little bad in that David Stearns press conference. So shout out Uncle Steve, but we need a new hairdo this time. We'll see what
Looked like
happens.
he jumped out of bed and got in the car and went straight to the he didn't
Yeah.
even he looked like he was out partying all night before.
Yeah, he looked like he had a rough night. Shout out Steve though. Pete Alonso update. I haven't heard much about the whole Pete Alonso situation. I know that there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of news articles out there talking about, oh, we know David Stern said this in his press conference, but we're still going to see and wait to play out, obviously, to see if Pete Alonso is going to be there moving forward into the season. Like I said, David Stearns, I trust this guy. I don't think, unless things get really bad in terms of a contract negotiation where Pete Alonso just isn't willing to budge and something drastically changes, I truly believe what David Stearns said in his press conference. And I think most Mets fans want to believe that as well. But there is something to be said for the philosophy of how you play this situation out. We saw how the Yankees played the Aaron Judge situation out, and they let him go into free agency. He had a monster season, and they let him go into free agency. What do you think? Should the Mets wait to see how the season plays out? I think the consensus here is that locking Pete Alonso up for the long term, the earlier the better, to maximize the value that you can get out of it in terms of not getting absolutely fleeced for a contract. I'm not saying the Yankees got fleeced, but they definitely paid more than they would have if they locked him up before that, in my humble opinion. How do you think this contract plays out, and how would you approach it?
I would very much like them to get it done the sooner the better. I don't want to go into free agency with it just because my fear is that then you're running a risk of him walking and not getting anything in return. And to me, you can't have that happen. Like, if he's gonna walk, fine, but you need to know that ahead of time. And as much as that would hurt, you need to trade him. Like, if you don't think you're close on money, years, whatever, if you talk to this guy and you're having negotiations with Boris and you're just in two completely different stratospheres, you have to make that call to trade him. You can't just take that chance of holding on to him and then letting him walk. And then the other thing with that is the longer you keep him, say you wait till summer, the less you're going to get in return. So to me, you need to figure this out like now. Not only that, but then you got to think about, how do you replace him? How do you replace his production? Right now, Hoskins is out there. Like, if you do get rid of him, then maybe you can bring in a Hoskins to kind of be that guy for a little bit. There's different options, but to me, it's something I'd rather figure out now. I know you don't have to, obviously, but personally, my preference is get this straightened out as quickly as possible, and then you can make your decisions from there, because we're already in the constraints of I think I looked at it. The last estimate was like 260 something $million is the payroll with arbitration raises and everything, and that's without us adding anyone. That's without factoring in a Pete extension, without any of that. So, like, you're already almost at $300 million. And this is something, I know this isn't necessarily Pete related, but this is something I got into it a little bit with some people on X today. It's like, I know Steve Cohen's a billionaire. I know he has more money than anybody else, but we need to lower our expectations a little bit. I think, like, listen, ideally, sure, would I love to sign Yamamoto, Ohtani, trade for Soto, all of that? Yeah, everybody. I mean, we're all greedy. We all want all the best players. But realistically, do we live in a world where that makes sense? I mean, you're looking at like a $400-something million payroll if that happens. Like it's a lot of money. And Steve is a bit on record that he doesn't want to always have a payroll at over 300 million. Granted, in the next couple years, a lot of money is coming off the books, so you have to take that into consideration as well. But like, I just don't want Mets fans, and I know it's going to happen anyway, but I don't want Mets fans to get like this huge dream of getting all these guys and then going back, crazy when it doesn't happen. Because there's a good possibility we live in a world where maybe it's just Yamamoto we sign, and then everybody else is like lower tier signings, and we don't necessarily make improvements on the offensive side of the ball. Like, I could see that happening. Would I prefer that necessarily? I mean, if we get Yamamoto, I'd be happy. But I mean, I would like to see at the very least a DH brought in. But yeah, man, it's like we have to think about all these things because however much money Pete gets and everything else, that all affects all the other moves that we do. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And then like the whole other side of it is that if Pete really wants to be here or not, and we just talked about this so long already, like we all know that Pete knows how to handle the New York media. He gives the right answers, right? And I'm not going to sit here and speculate whether Peter Alonso wants to be a New York Met or not. But I will say that it's 100%. Like we just don't know if his mind truly is in the place where he wants to stay with New York. We would love to have him here for the rest of his career, right? But certain things, just like outside factors like that, in terms of what he's actually thinking, what he's planning for not only himself but his family, where he wants to end up, that all takes into account. Just like Ohtani, no one knows where Ohtani really wants to play because the East versus West Coast decision with him is a real thing, and that's not just strictly Ohtani. These players have preferences. Whether they say it to the media directly or not. So there's other outside external factors, but I agree with you, man. Locking up Pete Alonso early would be great, but if it comes to the point where it's unreasonable, then you got to shift your focus and you got to think about getting some assets in return. It's not to that point yet. I'm not saying it's ever going to get to that point. What I'm saying is when these reports come out, and maybe things will look a little grayer 2 months, 3 months down the line from now than they did at this current moment, then there should be a plan B and plan C in place. Catching up on some of the comments here as it relates to Pete. Stevie Mack says Cohen looked like he just filmed The Hangover Part 4 back in the previous press conference. Good point. The best time to extend Pete was before last season. And if that was the case, if they did do that and he went and hit like 220 and he finished with a 220 batting average because everyone likes to knock that, then everyone would have been having their hair on fire this offseason. Like, that was a mistake. That was this. That was that. So, like, you can never really win, honestly.
You can't win, man. It's just whatever happens, you
yeah.
can't win.
Yeah. Matt says the offensive free agent market is bare outside of Ohtani. Calls can come in and it can be tempting. If there's an extreme difference in money, they will seriously listen, but I don't think the gap will be that big. I agree with you. I don't expect it to be that big. If his heart and soul and mind is really in New York and committed to New York, I don't think the gap should be that big. And I completely agree with you. That's a last ditch resort. That's like plan C to try to offload him. But we know who's negotiating that contract on his behalf. It's no surprise, and they've done deals before. I'm gonna say it. We overpaid for Nimmo. I'm glad Nimmo's back, but we definitely overpaid for him because that was a necessity for the center field market, and we know who's negotiating that contract for him as well. So it's not a secret. A lot of factors go into this. We tried signing mercenaries, Scherzer and Verlander, and it didn't work. We need players who want to be here. Pete wants to be here, so we need to do what it takes to sign long term. Like I said, if he wants to be here, 100%, definitely. And that gets into the next topic that MEZ is bringing up is what would you be willing to go? How high would you be willing to go? I did a lot of projections for Pete Alonso. I think that realistically, 8 years, less than this, 8 years around 220, 230 should get the job in an ideal world done for Pete Alonso. But now, like I said, with these trends of people and these players resetting the market and these agents just demanding the world and arm and a leg for these players, it's a different ballgame nowadays. So I will say confidently that I'm not going above 8 years for Pete Alonso. If he wants to get into 30 million AAV, so be it. We know what the rest of the first basemen are getting paid. 27 for Freddie Freeman, 26 for Goldschmidt. Matt Olson's down at 21. It's not realistic expectations. It's not a realistic expectation to compare those contracts to Pete Alonso. I'm not talking about skill wise, because we know that I'd probably rather take Freddie Freeman, age aside, than over Pete Alonso. Like anyone probably would, talking just strictly ball. But it's just the matter of when these guys are getting paid. The salary cap has a whole lot to do with it. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. So resetting the market definitely is not out of the question for Pete Alonso. I will say that. So if anyone's saying, and if anyone's expecting him not to get into that 30 mil AAV, I would highly reconsider your thought process there, because I just see it happening. They're gonna go crazy regardless on Mets Twitter. This is Mets Twitter. I 100% agree. Definitely like to browse the different interesting takes, but there's just only so much I can handle. I'd imagine already knowing what you're paying Pete in the future helps out with your free agent decisions as well. Yeah, I agree. That does too. So that's another reason why you'd want to get it done sooner rather than later, so you can allocate that space out to whatever free agent you need to, and to fill this team as efficiently as possible. Nelson, I'm gonna let you answer this one. Do you guys see Pete getting a contract with the Mets even after this season, or do you see him getting a contract with the Mets and free? So what do you realistically expect to happen? Do you think he gets signed this offseason, or do you think the Mets let it play out and let him go to free agency? Let any team that wants to offer him a contract offer it to him, and presumably Uncle Steve's going to match if they really want him in a Mets uniform.
Maybe I'm being optimistic here, but I actually do think they're going to get something done at the latest in spring training at some point. I think they will figure it out. I really don't think they're that far apart. If they were, I wouldn't think Stearns would be so. I mean, Stearns has consistently said Pete's going to be our first baseman this year. If he didn't think they were close, I don't think he would say that publicly, because in the back of his mind, he would have to think there's a possibility he could trade him. I would think like that. That's just logic to me. So I get the feeling that they are closer than we might even think, and I think it'll work itself out. That's just my guess. I'm no insider. I'm a fan like everybody else here, but if I had to guess, I think they figure it out by spring training.
Yeah, we wish we were insiders. I wish I could give you a definitive answer on that in terms of what I'm hearing, but unfortunately, I don't have those connections just yet. So we're working there. Biffer says,
Well, B. I just call him B.
oh, B. Okay, B says, "Hey, Chris and Nelson. Hey, how you doing, man? I appreciate B. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate all the new time listeners tuning into this stream. It definitely means a lot. This is the point that I want to raise here, because when I was doing early projections for Pete Alonso, my max was 215, 8 for 215. But what I think is going to happen, I think that number does go up, just like it did for Nemo, and just how these contracts are playing out across the league. I think the number goes up. But you're spot on, 185 to 200 realistically for his talent. I understand the home runs, understand the RBIs. But just based off of production compared to the rest of the market in terms of first baseman, 185 to 200, 215 for 8 max. But I do think it's going to be higher, unfortunately. But that's exactly the number that I was saying earlier on during the Interstate Mets Report. I said 8 for 215. That was my sweet spot right there for Pete Alonso. So spot on there, Matt. And then Imanga looks intriguing. High strikeout per 9 and sub 3 RA wouldn't be a bad mid rotation piece. I haven't done my research on Imanga. What have you seen out of Imanga? Is that and is he being posted this season, or is that gonna take another season?
I believe he is. That hasn't been made official yet. I don't think Yamamoto's definitely getting posted, but I believe he actually is, and he would be a. I'm not saying he would be a fallback option to Yamamoto. I don't think he's quite near the level, but he would be a definitely decent guy to get for the middle of the rotation, whether or not you get Yamamoto. To be honest, I'm not sure what he's going to command. He does have a lot more question marks than Yamamoto, but I wouldn't sneeze at signing him at all. Like I said, it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, we need pitching. Like that's our biggest need. If we are going to spend money, I think we are going to spend it on pitching. Who those guys are, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, I have my preferences, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it, however you say his name, at Shota
Imango.
at all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Whether it's free agent market or trades, whatever, however they need to piece it together, the two mainstays is going to be Quintana and Senga, and then you fill the back end of the rotation either internally or maybe a lower end free agent market, but definitely trades and free agents. I think you have to start at Yamamoto, and I think that's what's presumably going to happen, although you do have the Yankees having, placing some competition, some pressure on there, according to Mr. Andy Martino, but that is neither here nor there. The Yankees are, listen, I'm going to say this right now with all due respect to the Yankees organization. I'm not afraid of the Mets losing out to any free agents out to the Yankees. Like, I'm not afraid of that happening. This is not the olden times where the Wilpons here are negotiating and they have puppet GMs, and I'm not going to name any names, but you know what I'm talking about. I don't think that this is going to happen. And I'm pretty confident now. Andy Martino is wording this really weirdly, and I do keep track of what he says, even though I take it with a grain of salt, just for comedic relief. But he is saying that the Yankees, at the very minimum, are going to be highly competitive for Yoshinobu, which we already knew because Cashman was probably the first one to go out to Japan and scout him. Now everybody else is on him too. So I wouldn't doubt that, but we'll see what happens. It'll be a race to the finish in terms of who locks him up. But let's talk Baty and Mauricio, and any other of the kids that we want to talk about, because another factor here that we have to take into consideration when the Mets fill out this roster is the guys who are already here that are youthful, the rookies last season, and all the young guys coming up. And I said on the Mets Roundtable podcast, like the way the Mets go about this free agency is going to be so interesting because it's going to tell us how much stock and how much confidence the Mets have in this youth to bring a championship contending team to Queens soon. Because they're in this weird position because, they want to bring a championship here soon. That's been Cohen's whole MO since taking over. Obviously, it hasn't come to fruition just yet in the first couple of short seasons under his belt, but that soon-ish timeline is still the expectation, right? So how do you approach it? Because I mean, unless you're the Diamondbacks and you get hot at the right time, that's a young team that made the World Series, ended up coming short. Presumably, you're not going to ride with a team full of rookies to take you to the promised land, which is winning the World Series, right? So there has to be a perfect mixture, which is what makes David Stearns' job so difficult. Like, he has a plethora of riches, and we understand that, but moving about this free agency and the trade market in a way that prioritizing who's going to be coming up this season versus who's not in terms of Jet Williams, Luis Angel Acuna, all those guys that are vying for a spot early on in spring training, you would imagine, whether they get sent down or not. It's going to be a really tough task. So tell me about Brett Baty and Ronnie Mauricio in terms of their position. Where do you see them moving forward with the Mets? Obviously, given their, I guess, performance, Brett Baty didn't have a great season. Ronnie Mauricio looked pretty decent when he got brought on late. Where do you see their positions? Is Brett Baty, I guess this is the ultimate question, right, when it comes to these two. Is Brett Baty going to be the starting third baseman for the New York Mets come opening day? That's what I think everybody's wondering right now.
Well, all I can do is take Stearns at his word. And these little press conferences he was doing during the GM meetings, he laid it out. He said these kids are gonna get an opportunity. He said they're not planning on playing Baty or Mauricio in the outfield. So apparently that experiment's over, or the thought of that experiment's over. So that leaves the infield, and the infield leaves two positions, second base and third base. Baty obviously only plays third base, and Mauricio could play either or. Mauricio, I guess, is going to play winter ball again. He's going to get reps at third again. So it sounds like I don't know if they're gonna switch out and play them both at third. I don't know if their plans are play McNeil in the outfield, give Mauricio a shot at second, but they're gonna play these kids. I really feel like at the very least, third base is locked up by one of them too. If not both, if not, maybe they'll share the job. Who knows? But I really think it seems like um, Mauricio and Baty are going to get another shot. Well, Baty in particular is going to get another shot to prove himself. Mauricio, obviously, he just got called up late. They're probably going to let him play too. Like, and that's probably not the wrong thing to do. Like, you can't. Let's face it, you can't go out and sign a free agent for every single position. You need the kids to contribute, and you have more kids in the pipeline. So I think we're going to see at the very least third base locked up by these guys. Is Vientos still going to be around? Who knows? I think if anything, he could be a trade piece. You could see, I know a lot of people don't like it when I say it, you could see McNeil get traded. Because we do in theory do need outfielders. He obviously he can play left field if we must, but I don't know. I would like to somehow upgrade left field. I know that's probably not like high up on the order of things to do, but I would like to see something done, whether it be through trade or what have you. To me, DH is the biggest spot to fill externally. Like, I think we need a DH. I'm tired of seeing like these last couple seasons have been awful. But yeah, McNeil's a movable contract. I think you could see him get traded, and then we could either trade him for something to plug into the team or trade him for more pieces that you could trade to another team for something else. So don't be shocked if that happens, man. I know much to the chagrin of some Mets fans, but I wouldn't be shocked. But yeah, I think third base is going to get locked down by at least at first. Obviously, we can pivot in like trade deadline time. Maybe we could trade for a third baseman if it's not working out or what have you. But I think at first we're going to give these kids a shot, and third base we're going to fill internally. You're on mute.
Oops, I was on mute. This is how I break it down in terms of the whole dilemma. It's not really even a dilemma. It's just it's going to make David Stearns' job that much tougher. This is how I break it down. You got second base and third base. Between those two positions, you got the likes of Brett Baty, Ronnie Mauricio, Jeff McNeil, Jet Williams, Luis Angel Acuna, who are those two directly coming up and trying to compete for one of those spots. That's 5 people vying for 2 different positions, and only 2, because you can only play one at each spot, and we all know that. I'm stating the obvious. So what happens then? McNeil is a guy you can move to the outfield. He's versatile. That's just a fact. Luis Angel Acuna, maybe you can move to the outfield. We don't know just yet. But I just don't know. Like, and this is the comment that I wanna point out here. This is absolutely spot on. If you're just a fan of roster building and sports in general, this is an exciting time for the Mets because we don't know which direction Stearns is going to go in. There is so many mix and match ideas for Stearns to have here. It's just unfathomable. I have no idea what he's going to go, and I wish him the best because no matter which route he takes, some part of the fan base is going to feel some type of way. We all know that. So let's look at the left field position. We got Nemo in center field. You have a guy by the name of Jung Hoo Lee out there in the market, can play outfield for you if you choose to go that way. And you have the likes of Marte. Marte's future, his injury status is always going to be a question now moving forward into his final, I believe, 2 years at the Mets. And then you got Gilbert coming up. And Gilbert is probably one of the most ready prospects in my mind for the Mets. I think it's Jet Williams And with all due respect to Luis Angel Acuna, I think it's Gilbert and Williams. And then I think Acuna, like, I'm not worried about Acuna, but I know a lot of people were not happy with the way that I guess he came over and started producing when he got traded for, which doesn't make it, that's beyond me. That's not concerning to me in the least. But you got Gilbert up there as well. And so it really just is interesting to see, like, do you slot in McNeil to be that sort of fourth outfielder for you, which I don't really know how you do given his track record in this league, already winning a batting title. Like, I'm not the biggest McNeil fan, but like he doesn't seem like a platoon type player when you can get more assets out of him and maximize, I guess, his worth, right? So that's the way that I look at it, but it's going to be really interesting to see, especially with the two guys on your screen here, Baty and Mauricio, how this plays out. I have no idea. I guess the one question I want to pose, not only to the chat, right? You guys are certainly more than welcome to bring in your opinions on this question as well, but also you, Nelson, are you comfortable, just comfortable with these guys being long-term options for third base, given the defensive side of things? We all know Ronnie Mauricio wasn't thought of as the biggest, the best defensive prospect out there. And we saw Brett Baty himself also struggle on the defensive side of the ball, and they sent him down. His hitting wasn't great either, but presumably for the lack of confidence in the field as well. Is that something you were worried about with these guys, albeit their age? I understand that. But if you have a team that is really trying their hardest to put together a championship contending team, that sort of thing just isn't going to be tolerated in my mind. So are you comfortable with them being long-term options at third base?
That's like a $1 billion question, right? Like it's judging by what we saw from Baty at third, it doesn't inspire that much confidence.
Yeah,
he's young. He can improve. He's got all off season to work on his game. Mauricio's playing winter ball. He's going to play third base. We haven't seen him at third. If we did, it was brief. We don't have a choice, I don't think, but to give him a shot. We have to see what we have there, and the only way to do that is by trying them out and throwing them out there, and they're gonna have to sink or swim. Like that's basically the bottom line. Like you're a major leaguer, you've been in the league already. You're gonna be given all the resources to succeed, but you have to go out there and do it. And nobody can do it for them. They got to put in the work, and hopefully they do look decent because no matter how much they hit, if they're out there just butchering balls at third base, I don't think that's feasible to just let it ride. Like you might have to move them to DH or do something, but you can't have them just butchering balls. And third base is such an important position. It feels like the ball is always getting hit to third. They're always involved in something. So yeah, I don't think you have a choice but to see if they are legit. I hope they are. Like, how many times have we missed on these prospects? We get hyped over these guys and they just don't work out. I hope that's not the case, and I'm not ready to give up on Baty yet either. Like, I think, he looked bad last year. There's no way to shake it. He looked horrible at the plate in the field. So he has to step it up. Mauricio looked a little better. Granted, it was not a lot of time, but Mauricio looks like he could provide us quite the, like he has crazy power. He looks the part. Let's just put it that way.
He does.
So
he does. His swing speed too, his bat speed is phenomenal.
Yeah. So we'll see. We don't have a choice but to try it out. Like I'm not one of those fans that think it's time to just give up and move along and bring in a new guy for every single position. So we'll see what happens, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention Luis Guillorme and all the guys that I named coming up. I hate to say it, but I think Luis Guillorme is becoming a little bit of an afterthought. Do I think he can still be retained and provide some versatility off the bench. Sure, 100%. We know what his glove brings, but I just don't know. Like I said, this roster is going to be so crowded, and every position at this point matters. So, no, I agree with you. I think Yorme does find a way on this team just because of that glove, but I don't know how much playing time he's really going to get realistically. I'm not comfortable playing the baby Mets, but getting free agent mercenaries that don't perform scares me more. 100%. I mean, it is just the lesser of two evils at this point. You put your stock into the kids that are the homegrown kids, or you want to go get these journeymen. And I think I'd rather just take stock into what we have in our farm system and see if we can go about that way. Um, Give the time now so you can have a definitive answer moving forward as you progress past this transition type period. Yep, 100% agree. Nelson, you over there rocking a Knicks shirt? Is this what I'm seeing? Is that a Knicks shirt?
Nah, it's a Mets shirt.
Okay. I thought it was the New York Knicks text. Okay, I got you.
I
I
am a
thought you
Knicks fan.
were.
I am a Knicks fan too. I got a couple Knicks hoodies, but yeah, still rocking the Mets gear.
There we go. Marte being traded this year, I can't see who's going to want Marte. I just can't see who's going to want Marte. It's not worth even letting go his contract because if he performs even to a shell of what he did in 2022, the Mets can use that production, especially in the outfield. So I don't see it personally. But let's move on here, not to drag out some topics. I apologize about that, but Hefner staying put, presumably. Didn't know he was such a hot commodity for teams to be calling in on him to potentially acquire him, but apparently so. And he's highly regarded in the MLB, as you can tell, with multiple teams calling for him. But I think the Mets, if I'm not mistaken, had let it be known to the league that he's not going anywhere. So, what are your takes on this whole Hefner situation before we move into the Ottavino topic?
Obviously, the Mets see something in Hefner because he has made it through different owners, different GMs, different managers. Like they won't let him go. I know some people aren't too happy with that. I think this move has everything to do with Kodai Senga. I think this is about keeping Kodai comfortable, not switching up on him in his second year, giving him the best opportunity to succeed moving forward. Because Quintana, he's a vet. He could probably handle whoever comes in. But Senga was building a relationship with Hefner. It obviously worked well for him. He had a great year. I think this was definitely about keeping Senga comfortable. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think any other pitching coach would make that much of a difference. So I'm fine with keeping Hefner. And let Mendoza fill out the rest of the staff however he wants. But like Joey Cora is on to Detroit. I can't imagine a world where we keep the hitting coach. But yeah, I think Hefner's solid enough. I don't think you can. Yeah, he hasn't gotten some the greatest out of guys like Peterson and Smith, but just based on the work that he did with Senga, I don't have a problem keeping him around.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of people are shocked that he's being retained, especially for so long, like you just said. I mean, Matt's saying it here perfectly. He survived three regimes, almost unheard of, and people are agreeing with you. And all this talk about Jeremy Hebner was just kind of just shocking to me. Just like this guy's just a hot commodity. I don't understand it. But like I said, I completely agree with you on the Senga point. I think where he gets knocked a lot is, like you said, the Peterson performances and how he hasn't really progressed the way Mets fans have wanted him to progress. Same thing with Tyler McGill. Um, and the list can go on with that, but he has done some good things with the Mets organization. I think Kodai Senga is definitely one of those. So I agree with you. It really does depend on who is coming in, though, whether it's going to be a free agent heavy class like Yoshinobu Yamamoto is going to go through a similar transition that Kodai Senga did last season. So if they can replicate that sort of success, and if Kodai Senga is feeling comfortable with Jeremy Hefner, then it's a no-brainer for me, 100%. Quintana doesn't really much apply to. Like you said, he's a vet. He's only got one more year left on his deal, presumably. So that doesn't really matter. But I think where he gets a lot of, I guess, knocking is the whole Peterson and McGill situation, because those guys at one point, at their not at their peak, because I don't say they ever had a peak, but at one point I thought those guys were going to turn out to something legit. And they were going to turn the corner. And just never materialized. So, and of course, the first person to blame is going to be the pitching coach. So, but yeah, no, I 100%. I think people are agreeing with you as well. They agree on your take of that. Um, let's see. He had to keep checking his eyes when he read Jeremy Hefner staying with the Mets. I think they have kept him. I think they have kept him as changing pitching coach as well as all the pitching changes maybe a step too far. You need some consistency there as well. I agree with you there, but so why would they change the hitting coach? Like, if that's the philosophy of keeping the consistency, what was the switch with the hitting coach? That's where I'm kind of like, I don't really know what the plan was there under Buck Showalter and under whoever was heading the top, and obviously Epler, but I wasn't sure with that. But yeah, no, I 100% agree. Consistency is key at any level, and this is certainly another factor too, especially with who you might have coming in too. So definitely. And Hefner knows. Yeah, honestly, at this point, with surviving through regimes, he's got to have some dirt on the Mets front office somewhere in between there. I'm not gonna. We'll see what happens to the pitching staff. We'll see how they progress. We'll get into maybe Hefner a little bit more when we see how this pitching staff and rotation actually fills out. We know the Mets need to fill in some holes in the rotate or the bullpen as well. So that's also going to be a need too. But let's get into our last topic here. Approaching on the hour. We got a couple more minutes left. Ottavino, surprisingly, to my surprise, I'm not sure if you're surprised, but I'm definitely surprised. As old as Adam Ottavino is and as unproductive in my eyes as he was last season, obviously he had a great season prior, but last season was just not it. He could not replicate that success. I'm surprised that he opted out. What's even more surprising is for me is that he went on, what show was it when he opted out? He went on the show. It wasn't SNY, was it?
Yeah, I think it was on Mets Hot Stove on SNY.
Okay. What is going on? I didn't watch that, and I didn't see what he had to say in there. But that is something else. That's something I've never seen before. So, what's your opinion before we wrap up and get out of here? What's your opinion how the Mets treat the bullpen this offseason? Additions, because like you said, we know we can't trust Drew Smith. We can't trust a Steven Negosa. We can't trust these guys anymore at this point. It's not feasible. It's not winning baseball. How do you fill out the bullpen with Edwin Diaz coming back? Obviously, that was a huge blow. Robertson, a lot of people are speculating if they're going to bring him back or not. How do you fill in this bullpen? And what do you think about the Adam Ottavino opt-out?
I was kind of shocked he opted out too. Then again, the market is so crazy that I could see a world where he thinks he can get $10 million from some team. Like, I could just see that. So he claims that it was the uncertainty and all the moving parts and this and that. Whatever. Like, honestly, bro, you weren't that good that it matters to me. So good luck wherever you go. I don't know if this SNY deal is like a tryout for him for like a backup retirement plan or what he's doing. But whatever. As far as filling in the bullpen, I mean, it's going to depend on how much we spend on the starting pitching and everything else. I said this in a video of mine. I'm not of the belief. I don't like throwing huge contracts at relievers. Relievers are so volatile. One year to the next, they're good and bad. It's just very up and down. Unless you get like the elite guys that are closers or setup guys that are usually lights out pretty consistently. Most relievers are just, you never know what you're going to get. So to me, I'm trying to swing like trades, like minor trades, maybe see if we can get lightning in a bottle with some guy, maybe pick up guys in the Rule 5 draft even, or just sign like journeyman guys and see what sticks. Like, I know that's not the sexy thing to do. I know people want that lights out bullpen. But it's so hard. Like, yeah, they decided to throw money at a hater or something, am I going to complain? No, it's not my money. And that would obviously be like a huge step up. But I would actually look like the White Sox said they're open for business. The Brewers are open for business. Seattle's looking to make deals. Like, these are all GMs that have stated they're looking to make trades. Like, call these teams up. There's good relievers on those teams. Like, try to find stuff on the trade market. You just have to start. That's the one thing where I just have to have belief in David Stearns. Like, I wanted him here. His track record says he knows how to build a bullpen and build a rotation. Milwaukee has always had a good rotation and a good bullpen. So I feel like, Jesus, take the wheel. I feel like this is like a situation where regardless of what my ideas are, I think Stern. I gotta have faith in Stern. Jordan Hicks is a solid guy. He's got, obviously he can throw like 100 miles an hour. Who's that other guy? The Japanese guy from the Orioles let go.
Oh, I forgot his name, but yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Walks a ton of guys, but that's another guy that he throws gas. Like, you can harness that, then maybe he's a cheap guy you could bring in. That's the kind of arms I'm looking for, guys that can blow gas by people. You hope they're not Drew Smith and that they're not throwing a fastball down the middle, but it's a crapshoot. That's all I can say with the reliever thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say we don't want another Miguel Castro 2.0. Dude throws gas, can't locate, and just you saw how that panned out for Arizona. But no, I completely agree with you. I know you talk about Bednar, seeing what the Pirates are gonna demand out of a trade for Bednar. So there you go. This is the name right here, Fujinami from the O's. So this is I'm not about but calling the Brewers on Williams 100%. And this is probably what's common of the night. Ottavino just gave up another home run during this segment, so that shows you where that encapsulates my feelings about Adam Ottavino. So no, 100%. I don't have any realistic expectations, but like you said, having trust in David Stearns because he does have a track record for a good pitching staff and a good bullpen in Milwaukee. Trust the guy. That relates back to the Carlos Mendoza segment that we said. Just trust the guy. Don't knock him in his short tenure here by one manager signing. Like, have faith in the guy, let it play out, and it'll be all good. I know that's a lot to ask for out of some Mets fans, but those who keep it more rational definitely 100% appreciate that. Listen, that's all we got today. We are going to get out of here, going a little bit past an hour now. I appreciate everyone rocking with us in the comments. I definitely appreciate that. Make sure you're following us on Interstate Mets. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up down below. Navigate to our channels as well. Hit that subscribe button. Definitely appreciate the turnout today. Subscribe to Nelson's YouTube channel. You know where to find him. It's in the description. Subscribe to my channel as well as CPNY Sports. Appreciate all the guys in the chat. Tom, Stevie, M-Easy, Stony, Yuki, Patty showed up too. Everyone that's showing up today. Matt showed up. Appreciate all you guys. Nothing but love. Appreciate y'all's tuning into the stream. Stevie. We got Biffer B. All you guys. Shout out you guys. If I missed you, then it's all love. I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for the support as always. We'll see you all presumably next week. Keep an eye out on our Twitters for when we're going to be rocking. And this hot stove season is upon us, so you'll be seeing more of us. So as always, guys, let's go Mets. Keep an eye out on our Twitters. Keep an eye out for Mets news, and we'll hit you all next week. As always, it's CP with your boy Nelson. Let's go Mets. Catch y'all later.
Let's go Mets. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you for watching the Interstate Mets Report. Streaming Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to @Amish Country Mets Fan